bad description on it, but it's foam rubber. It's actually a long history of it being issued that it's not a lethal device. What makes it not a lethal device is the speed of the basically round coming out of the device. We're doing a whole bunch of others. I wasn't prepared to have the laundry list of all the stuff we're doing, but for example, ballistic shields, we're going to go to we're testing those right now. We're going to go up the street with those. That gives another layer of protection. That's simply for the protection of the officer. So in an environment that could certainly lead to them making decisions that you're talking about, redeployment decisions. So I'll be glad to come back and go through that whole laundry list.
Well, I think it makes perfect sense to have a combined report from the department and the Inspector General on this issue. Is that something we need to revise, or would we need a new motion to have it be a combined report, or is that just something you can do?
You asked me to do a report. I think the fact that I'm going to work with the department, I don't think changes anything. It will still be the same report that you asked for.
Right. Do any of my fellow commissioners have an issue with that?
No, I think it's good.
Yeah, it would be great if you could collaborate on that, so we're not duplicating efforts. Any other questions?
I read it. I think you've got a great start. I do have a couple of questions because I think that it's important that the final product give us a better picture of how the policies identified in the report fit into a system of accountability and whether they actually have any useful elements that we can incorporate. So I've got four thoughts, ideas. I think that the Commission President covered a couple of them, but I'm going to because I didn't find that the report, the way it is now, indicates how these policies are applied, adjudicated, or enforced. And a policy by itself doesn't tell us much if we don't know how it fits in their entire system, because we have a pretty unique system. Because we make separate findings on tactics, drawing, exhibiting the firearm, and use of force. Question one is, how do the departments in the report adjudicate their use of force and apply these policies? Do they separately adjudicate tactics like we do? I think some of this stuff can be on in the grid, maybe. Number two, what options do they have when an officer is found to violate a provision of their policies or training directives? Number three, their stats on the number of use of forces and findings on whether they are consistent with their policies. And number four, I think as Commission President said, have they seen any changes in their use of force when these policies were put into place? I think the answers to these questions as a part of what you've started will give a really complete and valuable document to us, especially including the department in this discussion.
We will definitely incorporate those suggestions along with the comments made by commissioners.
I just had a question about on the first page, under use of force policies, you talk about the different agencies that you're looking at. And I guess I'd like you to help me understand a little better what you are or are not doing with LA Sheriff's Department in Seattle.
When we were first trying to examine what departments to go to, we look at one of the criteria is looking at departments that have undergone changes recently in the use of force area. And as we already picked locations to go, we were continuing our investigation to try to figure out how many different departments have tried to deal with this de-escalation language and how they framed it. And all that intro paragraph was meant to do is to suggest that there are other departments out there that have the de-escalation language to let you know that although we picked a few, it's not; these are not the only ones that are that have used such a language of last resort or de-escalation or other things to try to diffuse potentially lethal situations. We put a footnote of Seattle because we thought that was informative, even though we didn't go there. But for example, the Los Angeles Sheriffs have last resort language in their policy. And they also have language about de-escalating situations as well. And I can, as when I put that packet together, I will have all the variants, all the different departments,
So if
They're out
you're
there.
including those.
I will include as much information as we can get our hands around so that there can be an informed discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
We do have 7 cards.
It's called cards, please.
Francis Jenkins, followed by Michael Novick and TJ Giordano.
Francis Jenkins, published the City Life newsletter, active since 1991. In reference to relatively comparative review of selected agency policies, investigations and training on use of force. These investigations, did they include people like Zell Ford, Brendan Glenn, Angie Guzman? They include those people in terms of the use of force that was used against them? Deadly use of force. There's use of force and then there's deadly use of force. Use of force, you just end up in county jail. Deadly use of force, you end up in the cemetery. And that's where all these folks are. Angie Guzman, Charlie Apple. Because of the use of force. Now, the people training your officers in the use of force, how mentally sound are they? Do you want to know? Does anyone know how mentally sound the people who are training your officers are? Because we know a lot of your officers suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you've got someone suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and he's training your officers, you know, that sort of cop will do some damage. I know. I heard one of you cops out here last week walked in here, detective, who walked in here and saw a female detective, and they exchanged pleasantries. Hey, how you doing? She said, yeah, how's it going? They were talking, exchanging pleasantries, and then all of a sudden, the detective said, you know, I don't like women telling me what to do. And she said, I'm sorry, what? And he said, I don't like women telling me what to do. I'm just joking. He was not joking. He did not like women telling him what to do. Those are your trainers that are training your officers.
I want to point out a few things. Michael Novick with people for Black Lives. The LA Sheriff's Department a couple of years ago got one of those technology transfers from the Defense Department, a virtual reality training equipment to deal with shootings, and the specific design of that piece of equipment in the military was to get people to shoot. They're trying to overcome the resistance of their soldiers in the field, even when under fire, to actually fire their own weapons. And the virtual reality training was designed to overcome that hesitance on the part of GIs to actually fire their weapons. The Sheriff's Department claimed they were using it to reduce the use of weapons by the department. So training is sometimes very pointless, or it has a real point. A lot of this equipment you're talking about, another chief, I don't know how many chiefs you have, has said how excited he is about this piece of equipment, you know, boys and their toys. But every one of those things that you talk about, tasers, you know, have been, they're not less than lethal, they're just less lethal. People have been killed by tasers, people have been killed by batons, people have been killed by so-called rubber bullets. I want to refer to the fact that in your previous report, you could not even get your own Inspector General to schedule a meeting that you had asked him to do to improve and correct the report. So I think that any of these policies are not worth the paper they're printed on. If you can't even get your own staff to do what they're supposed to do, let alone the department. And so I would say that you might want to, once you have the reports printed up, you could stack them in the bathroom to use in case the toilet seat covers or the toilet paper runs out.
Oh boy, here comes the
Here we go.
Police Protective League. Governor Police Commission. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Police Protective League to formalize our position following the last meeting regarding the use of force policy and possible changes in training with the stakeholders as led by the Office of the Inspector General. At that meeting, it was communicated by independent counsel for the lead, Gary Ingemanson, that we are looking forward to responses to our Public Information Act requests and having them reviewed by our independent consultant, retired Commander Rick Webb. Following our thorough review, that will enable us to engage in a serious dialogue with respect to the use of force policy and training. Our expectation is that no changes in the use of force policy will occur until such time as the department and the league have completed the meet and confer process regarding the impact on the wages, hours, working conditions of employees within our bargaining unit, including completion of impasse if applicable, as required by the Myers-Millis-Brown Act, California Government Code 3500 etc. This expectation was articulated and acknowledged by all parties at the aforementioned stakeholders meeting. We will await direction as to when the next meeting of the stakeholders will take place.
Thank you.
Speaker Ted Hayes, followed by Walt Beers.
You have to be paid. You have to be paid by my taxpayers.
Under the same conditions, there should be some uniform for regarding that. Black men, overweight, with hog ties. What that means is he was handcuffed, his legs were shackled, and brought up behind his back and tied with his hands. He died. Then last year, a black woman who was hog-tied, her legs and hands brought together, she died. Now, I don't know whether the coroner can say hog-tie causes death, but we had two incidences where death was occurring with hog-tie. I see nothing about that method being the true. Now, hog-tie usually takes place when the suspect might be kicking, or shackling the edge, the legs should be sufficient, and pulling the legs up behind the back almost to the point where both legs and hands touch are not necessary. Now, another element that use of force is important on. This is a picture of what happened 2 weeks ago. A young lady had a hammerlock put on her.
Oh, shit.
And why? Because she was using a camera to video the proceedings and the exit from the building. The Brown Act allows you to make recordings. But they wanted to stop her from recording, and they decided to take her camera from her. She didn't want her to electrocute shit. So they put the hammerlock on her and took the camera. Now, a hammerlock could cause extreme pain. That's what I call, and any sensible person call, torture. So you've got to have some regulations prohibiting torturing people.
Walt Beers, followed by Hamid Khan and Wayne Clemency.
I want to address this specifically to Mr. Monte. Years ago when you first came here, you did a couple of community meetings with us because we were concerned with this idea of use of force. And in that meeting back some years ago, you told us that the ideology behind the use of force is under the pretext of fear of life. And that was 2009. So again, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you then. How is it possible that an officer who is carrying a weapon, baton, taser, cuffs, how is that possible, a fear of his life for an unarmed suspect? How could that officer, how? I'm asking you, how could you be fear of your life if I'm standing 50 feet away from you, unarmed? How? You have all the weapons. I have nothing. Your language that you're using here, when safe is feasible. To who? The officer or me? I'm the one getting shot and killed. Not this guy, not that guy. Me. People who look like me. So you still have to work on this report because it's not addressing any of the things that we brought to you back in 2009 when you came to our community to ask us. So I would ask that the board, you've already made your vote. I mean, it shouldn't be approved because it does not recognize, it does not give us the definition of what we deem as a use of force to our community. Thank you.
Any make comments?
When you were putting this report together, did you think about doing an inventory of the tools of use of force as a comparative between different agencies? I mean, was that ever a thought? That what sort of weapons?
That's a separate report.
So the inventory that would show LAPD's tanks, helicopters, semi-automatics,
Drone rocket
the use
launchers.
of force. Is that what you're saying, Matt Johnson? That's the inventory?
I thought you were referring to less than lethal.
No, because there is no such thing as less than lethal force.
No.
There's no such thing.
Right.
People are dying. Tasers killed 49 people last year. So let's not bullshit ourselves. I think the question that I really have, and it was, I mean, there's so many things that go through your mind when you're looking at this 8-page document. Obviously, you know, representatives of killer cops become stakeholders. I don't know where that guy went. You know, he just pumping his chest. Went over to the police protectively. But the question that I have is that, you know, reality-based training and lessons learned. At what point do we start really signifying these things where reality-based training, 21 people were killed by LAPD last year. What is more reality than that for the families whose loved ones have been killed? What lessons have been learned? Because this report doesn't talk about it. Something that is flawed by design, what lessons are learned? Something that started as slave catchers, which is rooted in oppression, which is rooted in catching slaves, which is rooted in operationalizing and enforcing segregation laws. So something that is flawed by design, how do you begin to start doing this comparative? That's really the question that we have. You talk about reality-based training. There's been a long reality that we all have faced. We are the targets of that training. And that is our reality as well. So I would really hope that your staff and you yourself would have some semblance of consciousness and start looking at this, that just expand on this thing, because this is really a useless report. It doesn't tell us anything.
And the final speaker part of this item,
Other reports you
Larger LA Police Memorial Foundation. We take care of our own. That's your real motto. No, not to protect to serve, no. We take care of our own. That's the LAPD's true model. And I thank you for putting that out there today. Because that's all you're doing, just protecting your own. You talk about dead cops in the field. Well, every time you're out there and every suspect knows that you're going to use deadly force, what do you think's going to happen? More likely, more officer-involved deaths in the field. Because you guys are paramilitarizing this police department. And the reason you're doing it, it's what happened in East Germany with the Stasi. It's what happens with every country. We have a sick economy. We got a bunch of people running the show. They're all paid off. They're all criminals. They're all corrupt. They're stealing billions of dollars across the street. So you have to protect yourselves from us. We pay all the bills, and if any of us gets out of line, you're fucking dead, okay? And that's why you do this. Every now and then you hang a couple of people, you shoot a couple of people, just to continually remind the public, go to work, little asshole, pay your bills, little asshole, because you get out of line, little asshole, we'll take you outside, drive you to Metro Station and hold you for half a day, and then put you in a cell with people with pneumonia and turn on the air conditioning, which I had to suffer through for 3.5 fucking months with your misdemeanor count that you never filed against me. So that's what you do. This police department is a protection racket for the City Hall Mafia, and you're paramilitarizing it. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that you're full of shit with every report you file.
There are no other comment cards on this item?
Do I have a motion to approve the Inspector General?
Yeah, we're good.
Second.
Now, item 14, Department's report dated April 2016, relative to the vehicle pursuit audit, AD number 14-06.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon.
Jeffrey Phillips, Guard Quantum Vision, John Peters, Office of Operations. Before you have the vehicle pursuit audit that was conducted, we presented in the last audit, we had 3 recommendations. Those recommendations are pending.
Sorry. When was the last audit?
2012, fiscal year 2012.
So I just hope those recommendations are still pending.
They are still pending, and I believe what's pending is meeting with the
Any explanation out of the way or projection about when this is going to happen?
Good morning, Commissioner. I don't have the specifics other than to say that there have been a series of ongoing meetings with subject matter experts. There's been drafts that have been prepared by EPD of the new policy. And then I know for a fact that the deferred meeting is scheduled for this month in terms of moving forward. So that's what I do know.
Okay, I appreciate it. I think it goes without saying, we're approaching 3 years. That seems like a very long time.
The audit contained 10 objectives, and of those 10 objectives, overwhelmingly, the department did well. There's 4 overarching areas that we looked at: procedures, administrative review process, labor integration, techniques, and out of policy vehicle pursuits.
Do you mind if I interrupt? The audit looked very clean, obviously, except for the one area. Do you want to just talk about objective number 8?
Yes, objective number 8.
4 as well.
I'm sorry?
4 and 8. Let's just talk about 4. Number 4.
Sure. With, well, in regard to objective number 4, we were looking at the additional units in the vehicle pursuit. And the policy, when these vehicle pursuits are adjudicated, they do look at whether there's additional units that join in the pursuit and whether there's those additional units were necessary. And so in our findings, we did see that their findings were in that adjudication process. There were additional units and they were directed to training, and they were identified in the administrative review process.
From the department's perspective, do we have a sense of how we're responding to that or contributing that?
What I know, Commissioner, is on those 5 that were identified during the review process, they were identified as out of policy pursuits. There was a determination to provide some extensive training to the officers that were involved, and those were the discrepancies.
Okay, so on the first 2 bullets, it says that training, 3rd, 4th, and 5th doesn't say that. You can assume that didn't happen.
That's my understanding.
Would you just check on that, please, and make sure? And this was an important area of concern in the first place. And 83% is probably an improvement, but it's not where we need to be.
Exactly, and as you've identified, the sample for this particular audit is 2013, so it is old. And talking with Lieutenant Ferry, who oversees the super review unit, the current numbers are substantially better, and we're improving that.
Great, thank you, Dr. Shea.
In regard to objective number 8, this is a particular area that we've seen a compliance rate that has not been very good historically. And you've seen table number 6. Most of these reports, as far as not meeting the 20 calendar days to be forwarded to the Bureau Commanding Officer, most of them are overdue within 20 days. And so we went ahead and included a recommendation that perhaps it's the workload with many officers, and perhaps looking at changing the policy to 30 days where it would.
That doesn't seem to me to fit in back to 20 days. I don't have any problem extending the time period.
And that is part of the new policy recommendation.
In terms of the issue of going through the meet and confer and getting the recommendations finally approved, what do you think is a reasonable period of time for you to be able to report back to us on where we are and hopefully have gotten through that process?
You know, Commissioner, I would have to get back to you on that.
Let me weigh in on this. Commissioner, the department has formalized the proposal, which includes a number of changes to include extending the period of time for review. One of the impacts on the timeliness of the review is with the including of digital in-car video now. Each of the review steps at the watch commander, area captain, actually patrol area captain, and bureau requires that each of those digital in-car videos be reviewed. So that is impacting time. However, also flex work schedules and just the ebb and flow of work, and ensuring that the review is thorough, because this also impacts the timeliness because it goes back and forth. But to the overall issue, which was the department recognizing that it needed to make modifications to its pursuit policy to include the number of units involved, what constitutes paralleling, administrative review, and so forth. There was an initial meeting for the meet and confer through our employee relations administrator. There's another one now scheduled. We're back on track. One of the challenges that the department had in coming to terms with this was there was consideration of in evaluating pursuit, how many parties in the pursuit, the officers of engagement, would the mechanical process be in reviewing the appropriateness of their actions. And there was much internal discussion about the merits of adopting the non-categorical use of force scheme or remaining with the process now, which basically is more succinct, and we believe, and ultimately the latter decision was chosen, so that to keep the matter straightforward and simple, and to govern and take action when necessary for when officers violate our pursuit policy. I think we're back on track. I think that the meet and confer will go, I'm hopeful, very well, and I would anticipate we'd be prepared to come back in 60 days to review the status of that.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
Move approval with the.
Well, we have any?
We have 3 comment cards. We have Wayne Fornacino, Ted Hayes, and Michael Williams.
Three weeks ago, there was a sensational car chase. Guys are doing donuts and driving on the sidewalk. Mr. Johnson, when's the movie going to be made? Anyway, the thing is, pit maneuvers. Are all officers trained to do the pit maneuvers? Because it can be very dangerous. That's one question. The second question is, in a chase, who has the discretion to call the chase off? Is it the officer doing the pursuit, or someone else commands him to stop the chase? 2 questions.
They weren't even listening, so they can't answer.
They weren't even listening.
They weren't listening.
On to the questions. However, for the sake of simplicity, each officer involved in a pursuit is responsible for evaluating continuing the pursuit, as well as a supervisor assigned to the pursuit as the incident commander. They have the authority to continue or discontinue. And then as to a pit maneuver, all of our personnel are trained for pursuit intervention technique and under what circumstances allow for that technique to be employed. And we'd be happy as a department to provide this information through whether it be online or through a conversation after this meeting or in any of our town halls or community police academies.
Thank you.
Michael Williams.
Yeah, I think Buford T. Justice said it so well in these officer chases.
inaudible.
I can't tell whether this is on topic or not.
Well, it's on topic because that's your typical police chase. What it starts with is this frivolous fucking bullshit. That's what it starts with. That's why they made this movie. That's why Jackie Gleason portrayed the sheriff. To show you how fucking stupid this is. When they start these high-speed chases, usually it's some guy, you know, you have a broken tail light, it turns into a 6-county chase. And I watch your cops all the time driving on the streets. They're driving like it's a demolition derby out there through red lights and everything. So on the top of the report, item 1 should be, item 1, slow the fuck down. That should be item 1. You don't have to run code 3s and go 75 miles per hour in 25 mile per hour zones to, you know, to get to a fucking alleged, you know, car blocking incident in a driveway. These people are driving out of control. Slow the fuck down.
Michael Williams.
Before my time starts, I would like to ask that, as I said before my time started, I would like to ask that Matt Johnson refrain from talking about whether or not I'm on topic until at least I'm a minute into what I'm saying, because you have a habit of interrupting me, and I want to save us time and you further embarrassment. Okay. So I was talking about the number of officer-involved shootings across the world. Let's look at this Iceland one real quick.
Why don't we go there?
Again, in the history of Iceland, their police force has only killed one person. Think about that. In the entire history of Iceland's police force, they've only killed one person compared to our 1,000 in 1 year. I said wait. Because you don't know where I'm going with this. You don't know where I'm going with this. So that's why, you know what? That's why I asked you not to interrupt me. Because you don't know where I'm going with this. You don't know what I'm going to say. You don't know where I'm leading up. So just listen. Then you have a problem with that. You have a problem with listening to people. What I was going to bring up is, never mind, because I don't have the time. Because you just wasted my goddamn time. Right. I don't have the time to explain this to you.
Right. Give them 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
The policy, what I was trying to explain is that there's the policy that you guys have, the tactics that you guys have, lead to officers killing people. If you look at other tactics in other places, as I was going to explain, but I don't have time to explain it, you would see that their tactics lead to people getting out alive. Your tactics leads to perpetuating emotions, infuriating people, pushing people to feel threatened by your officers, making your officers in turn feel threatened by people, and then you start things like police chases, you start things like officer-involved shootings, you start things like police brutality, beatings, and things like that because of the way your officers approach, the way your officers speak to people, and the way your officers do things. Your tactics are what's wrong.
Right.
Part of the information that we're gathering with all these reports is looking at how other jurisdictions, not just the United States, but around the world, are doing things, the tools they use. One of the benefits of having body cameras
You never
is
mentioned
to be able to
Iceland.
hear and see the behavior of people on both sides of the camera.
Are you going to hide
But
those
there are other
videos
things
too?
that you have to look at as well. You mentioned a number of countries that, you're right, the number of officer-involved shootings in those countries are very low. The number of guns in those countries are also extremely low. It's almost impossible to get a gun in
Do something
all
about
of
That's another
those countries.
conversation.
So what those officers are faced with on a day-to-day basis is far different than what our officers are faced with. So you can't look at these things in a vacuum. We're trying to look at every factor and try to create and put into place the policies that are best serve what the realities of the situation that our officers are faced with every day here in Los Angeles.
I wish I had time to explain how wrong you are, but you didn't give me the time, so
Were there any other comments on
you interrupted me.
motion to approve.
Exactly.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
I said, give me a minute. Didn't I ask him?
Now on item number 5, public comment period, we do have 18 comment
Thank
questions.
you.
We do have 18.
I'm gonna reset the stream. I'll be right back.
Let's see.